Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features the Punisher War Journal, number 7, cover dated July 1989. And of course, as the caption makes plain, it's guest starring Wolverine. How could you miss him? There on the cover, striking out at the Punisher. And that's a really cool action image on this cover, drawn by Jim Lee and inked by Carl Potts. But the interesting choice here is by the colorist, whoever it was, probably Greg Wright, and it is to light them in this fashion with the blue on their skin and the deep red and purple in the background, kind of suggesting very early morning or dusk, just at sunset. Very interesting choice, eye-catching, and not what you would initially go with for the coloring on their skins, but I think it works. I mean, maybe it was a printing error, maybe something went wrong there, but as I said, I do think it works. So let's open this one up. It is part 2 of a 2-part story. At the end of the previous issue, Wolverine left Punisher for dead in the river in the middle of the Congo, because he was under the impression that the Punisher, who is in Africa incognito as one Charles Fort, that the Punisher was involved in poaching gorillas, their skulls and hands, and of course it was all a mix-up. But Wolverine doesn't know that, and we pick up with the Punisher coming to in the river, just as a huge crocodile is making its way for him. So let's look at the creative team credits. Carl Potts is credited with the story and layouts, and Jim Lee layouts also, and the finished art. So Jim Lee inking himself on this particular issue, just as he did in the first part of the story. And on the point of the layouts, it's intriguing and challenging to figure out which layouts are Lee's and which are Carl Potts. My theory is that the more artisty, the more designy layouts are Lee's, and so I think that this one could be his layout and the first few pages are his. So as I go along, I'll point out where I think Lee has done the layouts, because there's more of an artist's eye for the big and eye-catching image versus Potts, who's more focused on just telling the story, his story. Jim Novak letters and Gregory Wright finally on colors. So as I said, the Punisher comes to, sees the crocodile coming for him. Nice use of screen tone here, indicating the shadows on the Punisher, and I like this decision to have him upside down. It kind of conveys his disorientation to the reader. So has he had his head chomped by that croc, which is the implication of the final panel here? Well, let's turn the page and see what we have. Well, we've got almost a splash page here of the Punisher wrestling this huge crocodile, and that is really, really cool. And what we get here with Jim Lee finishing the art, and I do think that the layouts on these couple of pages are his, is the time and attention given to different textures and different inking techniques. So he seems to be using something like maybe some cotton wool dabbing to indicate the disturbed water here in the inks. And also I like the way that he's rendering the scaly skin of the crocodile as well. That's really nicely done. So Punisher in the previous issue wrestled with a gorilla. Now he's wrestling with a massive African crocodile, and he tries to grab a handhold on the branch of one of the trees there by the side of the river, and it snaps off. So he's underwater with the crocodile. Has the crocodile won? No. The Punisher has beaten an African crocodile in the Congo. That's both hilarious and just so cool as well. And then he's out cold all night, so he does need to recover from that exertion. And I like the indication that there's some little rainfall there as well by Lee. That's nicely done. And so he comes to in the morning and he's thinking about how he has to get that hairy wild runt who chucked me into the river. That's Wolverine, of course. He must be the gorilla poacher. So the two lads are confused about each other in terms of who's been poaching the gorillas. And the one who killed Jean, that was the young pygmy boy in the previous issue, and Punisher's vowed to kill whoever killed Jean. And this is an interesting moment here where the Punisher wipes or sees the river mud all over his hands, and he looks at it and he wipes it on his shirt, and it seems to be on his face too. And this is reminiscent of that scene in the 1987 Arnold Schwarzenegger Predator movie, the one directed by Jim McTiernan. And I wonder, was Lee going for that kind of recall here on these panels? Let's turn the page though and see what we have coming up next. I think what it is that he has kind of painted on like a new Punisher emblem on his ripped t-shirt or something like that, with the mud. It's a little bit confusing, and also on this page we don't see any of that mud on him. So again, I'm just wondering, like, I'm trying to explain what was going on in those two panels, because Carl Potts didn't put any first person narration in there, and I wonder, was he confused by what Lee had drawn? Also, I'm of the opinion that this page was laid out by Carl Potts and not actually by Jim Lee as well. This kind of top-down angle, I think, is a hallmark of Potts. Anyway, there's great work by Lee on this page with the finished inks and pencils and inks. So the Punisher here is thinking that he goes through, for any reader who hasn't got the first part, like basically what he's doing in Africa and his pseudonym, Charles Fort, and all the rest. And then we pick up with Wolverine, who is on the trail of the big game poaching ring. He thinks that Punisher was a part of that, killing rare animals for fun and profit. The storm wiped out most of this track, so that's the rain in the previous pages. Looks like two of the gorilla killers came this way, stalking them in the skin of one of their victims. This is this King Cheetah. Appeals to me, the King Cheetah skin's great bush camo. So here's one of these snakes that goes in to attack Wolverine rather foolhardily. It bites him on the hand, and he basically flings it away. Healing factor should counter the toxin before it gets up my arm. Adamantium claws are my built-in machetes, cut through anything. Time to eat. And again, like these kinds of exposition in the thoughts of the characters, both in Punisher and Wolverine, is just a convention of the genre to catch up any readers who don't know the characters or it's their first issue. And now he thinks it's time to eat. So this is an interesting little scene, because a lot of writers in this era kind of write Wolverine as very protective of animals. And so here he takes down a deer, and he thinks to himself, don't like to kill anything I'm not going to eat. But he needed it for sustenance, for lunch, and he leaves some of the deer he leaves the whole deer to the cheetah because it also is looking for lunch, and he thinks to himself, have to hope I run into more on the track, and it seems that maybe he does. And then we have a scene switch to this guy who's from the ongoing storyline in Punisher War Journal, and he's made his way to Texas, but I'm not going to go through this because we're here for the main story, which is the crossover between Punisher and Wolverine. So Punisher finds the deer and infers that it was scavenged by a cat, so he's on Wolverine's trail, and he uses the cut vines to slake his parched throat. We had some details on those special vines in the previous issue. No time for anything more substantial, because he knows that Wolverine's tracking the rest of the expedition, and he thinks that he can't let them do to them what he did to Jean. He blames Wolverine for Jean's death in the previous issue and tried to do to me. So then we pick up with the expedition. So we've got the professor there who's leading it, and his wife, and the professor tells Jacques to go find Mr. Fort, that's Punisher's pseudonym, and tell him where to meet them at the lake's southernmost shore point, because they're moving on with their expedition to try and find the dinosaurs that are rumored to exist in the area. So they've made their way to a different tribe, and the professor's getting nowhere with this new tribe. And his wife sees this woman from the tribe and how she's interested in her gold bracelet. And apparently these tribe members can speak French, so Norma, that's the professor's wife, is able to speak to the tribal woman and offers her the jewelry if she'll tell her about Mokele Mbembe, which is the name for these dinosaurs. So the woman admits that they do know about the dinosaurs, and there are a few of the great beasts left in this area. Mid-morning, almost every day, they travel from the thick swamp jungle down a stream into the lake. So Norma's absolutely delighted. She thinks she's going to be rich, and she calls out to the corporal, who's in on the poaching deal with her, and they bring the woman to be their guide. And several kilometers away, Jacques catches up with Mr. Fort in quotation marks. It's the Punisher's pseudonym, and they begin their trek to the lake. Okay, so these different characters, Wolverine, Punisher, the expedition team, they're all going to come together in this story. And this is an interesting bit that comes in later, where Jacques tells Punisher, "Hold, a leopard feasts on a lone gorilla. We must go around it, as it will be protective of its kill. Only one-on-one can the big cat kill such an ape. A group of gorilla, as will often attack a lone cat. A group of gorillas, rather, will often attack a lone cat, especially an injured one." Okay, so we've learned something about the animals in the jungle there, and that will come in a little bit later. I think this page was laid out by Carl Potts, but this is really nice work from Jim Lee here on these, well, what are they? Brontosaurus? And again, just the attention to the rendering of the skin and hide of these great beasts, and also the jungle and the lake water as well. Really great work by Jim Lee on this issue. So as soon as they see the dinosaurs, Norma says, "They're real, we're rich." So she instructs the young woman to go back to the tribe. She doesn't wander around to see what they're going to do next. Corporal's getting out his equipment there. And then back at the village, the professor gives up on trying to get the location of the animals from the tribal chief. So he hands it over to the lieutenant of the Congo army that's guiding him there. And these are interesting layouts on these pages. These could be by Jim Lee. And I like the what's it called again? The color hold on the lieutenant's glasses here, with the reflection of the tribal chief talking to him. And the Congolese lieutenant threatens the chief. He says, "Your medical supplies could be cut off, your land confiscated, if he doesn't give up the location of the dinosaurs." So he does do, and then the expedition gets ready to move out, but the young woman comes back, and the tribal chief realizes that she's wearing a gold bracelet. What's going on there? And the professor is missing his wife. Meanwhile, we catch up with the Punisher, who's up on a tree. I like the rendering of the shadows of the foliage on the tree on the back of the Punisher's form there. That's really nicely done. And we can see Wolverine racing towards Norma and the corporal by the lake. And what they've done there is they've set up mines in the lake, and here come the Brontosaurus, and the idea is to blow them up when they hit the mines. So Wolverine is racing towards them. Punisher thinks he's out to kill them. Punisher doesn't know what's going on exactly with Norma and the corporal, and I really like his first person narration in these panels, where he says, "Have to haul it to get close enough for a sure limb shot." Okay, so he doesn't want a kill shot, just to shoot Wolverine, as it turns out, in the leg. I want to talk to this runt before I send him to the next world, find out what his story is. So he gets him in the leg, high up in the thigh, and Wolverine thinks healing factors kicked in already, can feel the pain of the wound knitting together. Here I'm coming, got to brace up on my good leg for, and here we go. We're going to get round 2 between Wolverine and the Punisher. Wolverine got much the better of him in the previous issue. Now it's time for round 2, and Punisher's ready. Punisher hasn't been taken by surprise this time out. So let's see how he does. Now, this page definitely laid out by Jim Lee. I'll wager that. So Wolverine, you can see it there. Great rendering of the back muscles. Not 100% anatomically correct, but it works. It reads well. And he takes out the barrel of the Punisher's rifle, and then the Punisher punches him in the chest. And he's got to be ready for him now in terms of that adamantium skeleton. Wolverine's got his claws out. Punisher hits him with the butt of his rifle. Great page. Really great work on this page. Let's see what happens next. Oh, we've got a page from Elliot Orr Brown's Punisher's Arsenal. Okay, so various bits of gear there that the Punisher uses. But back to this, look at that. Double page spread. That is what readers were paying their money for, and you get your money's worth with this double page spread. So the Punisher thinks here in his first person narration, Runt gave me a sawed off shotgun and shoots Wolverine right in the gut. That is really, really cool stuff. So, and also he manages to back away and not get entirely slashed himself across the chest by Wolverine's claws. So, you know, Punisher is much better prepared for the fight this time around and is doing much, much better. And Jim Lee using a lot of different techniques here in his inking. Again, I think there's some splattering going on with the ink, and also maybe some dabbing with something, again, like maybe cotton wool or something on this page. Here around the muzzle flare from the sawn-off shotgun, and here the rendering of well, I think this is supposed to be maybe blood that is coming off Punisher here, but Greg Wright has colored it green. And so Norma and the Corporal see what's going on, and she instructs the Corporal that they've seen too much and they're scaring away the dinosaurs. Shoot them, kill them both. And now the penny drops, and Punisher realizes, chumps, we're both chumps. Wolverine must realize it too, and he thinks, I recognize their smells. They too were on the gorilla corpses. These are the real poachers of the gorillas. So as I said, Wolverine and Punisher realize now who the real poachers are, who the real enemies are. And now, I think this page is likely a Jim Lee layout, but this one, and maybe this one here too, but I'm not 100% certain on that. That could be Carl Potts. It's hard to tell. But the dinosaurs are heading back into the swamp. So Norma here shows her true colors. We've no choice. We have to kill them all. Do it. That's the whole expedition, as well as Wolverine. So does the Corporal pull the trigger? Bang. No. He's shot by his lieutenant, who says to him, Corporal, you're a disgrace to our country. And that's interesting too, because of course, you know, something that's been avoided here is the idea that it would be like someone like either the Punisher or Wolverine that would save the day 100%. The Congolese lieutenant is perfectly capable of doing that and making that decision. So the Corporal makes his way out into the lake to get away, and the lieutenant says, let him go. That is swamp country. Even the pygmies will not enter. By gun or beast, he will be dead in short order. So Punisher says to Wolverine, I believe our quarrel is over. The professor's aghast and shocked. He thinks that what's going on can't be real. He goes after his wife. She shoots in front of the brontosauruses in order to turn them around back towards the mines, which are laid across the lake there. Punisher realizes it, picks up his rifle, got no choice, and he shoots her in the back to save the dinosaurs. So I like the way that Carl Potts has pulled back on dialogue here. We could have the professor shouting or saying something here, but no, it's a moment of shock, and that's nicely presented on this page. So the Punisher herds them away from the mines to safety, and Wolverine goes out into the lake. He's going after the injured corporal. And the lieutenant has got a bead on him. He says, "Mr. Fort, your enemy escapes. Hold it, Lieutenant. I don't think he is the enemy. Let him go." That's a nice shot of Wolverine there. I think I would say this page was laid out by Jim Lee. And the professor asks Norma, or tells her that he doesn't understand what she did. So she reveals everything. "You were played for a fool. I was hired by a rich Texan trophy hunter. We saw him at the beginning of the previous issue. Hired to get close to you when you first decided to mount this expedition. $1 million ahead for Mokele Mbembe. I was rich," and then she dies. And I just love this next panel with the Punisher. The Punisher looking on really sternly and grimly. And what does he think? Have to find and pay this Texan a visit. Like, he's not done. So that's great. And then Wolverine comes up on the corporal who's made it to the other side of the lake. He's injured, and Wolverine thinks with his claws out, there ain't going to be any question about this one's fate. So the cheetah skin has gotten hung up on a tree, and he thinks it did its job, leave it be, but we'll see another use for it at the end of this page. And he thinks, I can hear and smell more than one kind of animal heading this way. So the corporal begs him not to leave him alone, but Wolverine says here dryly, "You've got more than enough friends and relations on the way to keep you company, bub. I'm going home." And a few minutes later, Punisher arrives. He's got the slash marks across his skull on his shirt there. That's a nice rendering of the Punisher in dark silhouette, except for the skull and the slash lines of Wolverine's claws. And he's holding the cheetah skin. And what does he do? He hears in the bush a group of big apes heading this way. There they are, making their way towards the poacher. What was it the pygmy said about gorillas and lone cats? So he gets the idea of binding the guy in the cheetah skin, and he's wounded and injured, of course. So this is his punishment for the corporal. Look what happens when you try to do someone a favor. All I did was bind his wounds for him, he says, ironically, as he makes his way back to New York. 10 days later on New York's Upper West Side. That's where he's based at this time period. In all the excitement, no one even got a photo of the animals. We all agreed to stay quiet about the dinosaurs for their safety, keep it all a misty legend. And then tried to track the wild runt for a while, get him to a doctor, but he was better at covering his tracks than I was at following them. The amount of ground he covered was not that of a seriously wounded man. Wonder if Micro has any info on him. Micro, have to tell him his vacation idea resulted in my killing his friend's wife. And that was Micro's whole idea in the previous issue, that Punisher, that there was too much killing going on and he needed a break, he needed a vacation. And this is how it's all ended up. Human greed and conflicts don't just affect man. And then he remembers his thought that maybe he needs to take care of the Texan first. But what does he find in front of his door? Except, we saw this in the previous issue, the trophy mount, which was meant for the head of one of the dinosaurs, a 6-pack of Texan beers, a note, and a newspaper. And the note is typed, "Hello, no need to travel to Texas. I brought the beer. Please read the circled article in the newspaper." I really like this. This is good stuff. And then about the Texan oil tycoon, cattle rancher and stock trader, made a series of disastrous market moves yesterday and effectively wiped out all his investments by the end of the day. In one interesting move, Roberts donated more than $1 million to the World Wildlife Fund. So that's the end of that. Punisher isn't going to Texas, but he does have some new thoughts and questions. Who did this? Who knows I'm here? Daredevil? No, he doesn't leave his New York turf of Hell's Kitchen. Microchip? Have to ask him. If it isn't him, I've been compromised. Might have to move out. So the war goes on. But then we get a little epilogue. Months later in the Congolese jungle swamps, the poacher, the corporal, his remains, his skeleton, and the king cheetah pelt over the body, and then watch this huge foot stomping on the remains of the poacher, smashing his skeleton to bits, the tail dragging over it, and here they are, the magnificent, or here he is, the magnificent Brontosaurus. And that's a great drawing by Lee, and great finished art here, rendering again of that scaly skin. I'd say he enjoyed working on this page. Whether the layouts are by Carl Potts or Jim Lee, I don't know. I'd like to think it's Jim Lee layouts. It could be, but this is a great page and a really great ending to the first crossover encounter between the Punisher and Wolverine. So I do hope that you enjoyed this review and commentary on the Punisher War Journal number 7. If you did, please like the video on YouTube, and if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.